Hey everyone, and welcome at What is Your Gift? And today it's episode number 6. It's to inspire you to find your own gift and be able to help others and also have a transformative life. And today we have a very special guest, Michelle Carpenter. I've met her a few times. She's a very good friend of Jill Cole, which I know a little bit more. And Michelle has a very specific gift, like actually quite a few. She's a medium. She is also a channeler of the Council of Eight, and I hope you're going to speak a bit more about them because it sounds like incredible. And yeah, and so much more. I know that you're coming from South Africa and that you now live in New Zealand. You've been living in Queenstown and now you are around Nelson, if I'm right.
That's
Yes.
right, yeah.
And yeah, and so I really wanted to give you how I was blown away. This little story when I met her during a medium channeling time. Like we were in a group and I was with a friend and she's just in front of everyone. And suddenly she's just like, okay, so I sense around this side here. Yeah, yeah. And then suddenly she just is able to find the right person. And I don't know, maybe you need to tell us exactly if it's hearing and then you start like telling things that are so personal is just mind-blowing and people are just amazed. And it was such a beautiful and powerful evening, and I know that you do that quite often in different places, and especially when you come down to Queenstown. Yeah, I think it's just an incredible gift, especially when we are able to connect with people that have departed.
Mm.
So yeah, maybe Michelle, if you want to tell us a bit more about yourself and also how did this gift happen?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. And I always feel so honored when somebody reaches out and says, "Hey, Michelle, you want to be here?" Because, like, often I think to myself, like, do you know what comes out of my mouth? Like, my filter system doesn't work at the best of times. And I'm like, okay, Michelle, like I said to you before you press record, I'll try not swear, but it's just sometimes it just comes. Anyway, I'm working on it. I'm working on it. But thank you for having me, Aurelie. It's such a beautiful time to be here. And as you spoke of that specific time, I mean that was last year, and it was the first time. So we had our 1 day event, and then we had the evening, the mediumship in the evening, and in the afternoon. There's certain moments in my experience of, if I was to call it my career and where I'm at and what I do, but what I absolutely, absolutely love and am passionate about is that day. Were you there in the afternoon, in the
I
day? I can't
was
remember.
actually, I
Oh,
remember, but
okay. And then you
yeah,
came to
if
the
you want
evening
to.
session. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So I'll never forget, because I was sitting and it was my first big crowd that I had. It was the first time that I was working with a lot of people, a lot of energies, and because I've only up until that point done one-on-ones or smaller groups, small, like 3 or 4 people at my home. And I remember sitting and going, okay, how's this going to work? How's this? Like, Jill was still talking, and I was sitting in the chair in the front, and I'm like, okay, guys, how's this going to work? Please just tell me how's this going to work. And then I had this grandfather come through, and we had one gentleman in the group in our group that day, and he's like, don't worry, I've got your back. And he was Irish. And what I forgot to communicate with anybody in the audience is, just give me the yes. Like, just give me, if there's any information that resonates, just give me a yes. So I don't know if you can recall, like, the gentleman was at the back of the group, and I walked to the back, and the information was coming through, and this gentleman was just sitting looking at me. And I remember, like, going into fight or flight. My arms started to sweat. I could feel the sweat running down my armpits. I was like, oh my God, like, oh my God, like, is this even right, And eventually I just swore, and I was like, oh, for fuck's sakes, buddy, just, is any of this, because this guy was just standing, like, sitting, looking at me, like, and I was like, and I thought, I'm getting so, this is not like I was thinking many different thoughts. But I couldn't help it. It was kind of like that breakdown where I was like, okay, just break the ice. Like when you're in a group and you're just like, just break the ice. And like I said, my filter system doesn't work. And I went, oh, for fuck's sake, is any of this right? Is any of this? And he went, oh, am I supposed to confirm, like, this information is correct? And I went, yes, like sweating. And I remember everybody packing out laughing. And he's like, yes, it's my grandfather. And I was like, okay, thank you, thank you. So, you know what? Out of that learning, out of that day, I'm in complete trust of the information that comes through. And how I got to this point in my life is, in short, I'll give a bit of my background. Born in Zimbabwe, raised in a chaotic space. My parents, my dad was a young Rhodesian soldier. He was in the Rhodesian War. My mom was a young mother, and my mom was a very angry person. And what I came to realize in my older state of life and is that there were moments that my mom was incredibly psychic, but she never shared it. She hid behind her religion, which kept her safe. And as she was getting older and I started to connect more with the other side, my mom would say to me, Michelle, you're talking to the devil, because my mom went to church, and like I said, it's what kept her safe, and it's not right or wrong. But there's a lot of chaotic things that happen in my world. One being I was sexually abused at the age of 5 by my mom's younger brother. And my dad, being in the Rhodesian War, would go and come, and my mom was in a lot of fear. I remember as young kids, and I'm the middle child. I've got an older brother of 3.5, and then a younger sibling, a younger brother who's 7 years younger than me. And I remember my mom used to lock us in the room, out of fear. And I don't know what her fear was, but I can only imagine being in an environment where there's, war happening. Not that it was happening on our doorstep, but I just remember these moments. And I've asked my older brother, and he's like, he's been the sibling that's forgotten a lot. And just one thing, like I remember growing up when I was in relationships, was I remember as a young girl always cuddling my mom, but putting my leg and my arm over my mom.
Mhm.
And I used to do that with like the main partners that I had, be like, okay, lie on your back, and I've got to lie on them. And they're like, Michelle, like, this doesn't feel comfortable. I'm like, no, but it feels comfortable for me. It was like kind of my safety blanket, and you don't know why you do the things you do until you realize that, subconsciously, that was what made me feel safe. So my mom was very angry a lot of the times. And recently on my own YouTube channel, I had shared a big part of my journey. And, one of the things I remember was my mom was the life and soul of the party. Alcohol was very much a big part of us growing up. And sometimes it wasn't the nice versions of being the life and soul of the party. There was a lot of anger. I remember my parents fighting a lot. I remember waking up to them fighting. And my mom smacked us a lot. And I remember being 2 years old. And the way I remember the story, the reason I remember this, because it was kind of like a medal that my mom wore, because she shared the story very, very proudly. Was we used to be in those toweling nappies, not the normal diapers that you have today. And my mom was potty training me, and she had basically put me into panties once. And I share this with love. I want everybody to know this because I'm still working through my own healing of a lot of what had happened in my past. And I've been on my own journey for 15 years, my healing journey. I work through a lot of my healings. I like to deep dive into my subconscious and the energy of what the lineage and the ancestral intergenerational trauma that I know is still a work in progress. But to come back to, the fact that she spoke about this very openly. I was about 2, I think, 2.5, and she potty trained me. And I wet my panties once, and she gave me such a hard hiding that I never ever wet my panties again. And I didn't realize this was a thing until I started going for acupuncture a few years ago. And I remember this memory coming up. He was working on my bladder meridian, and I just burst into tears. And you work with the meridians, don't you? So, you work with energy. And So those are just one of the stories. And my parents fled from Zimbabwe to South Africa. There was just a lot of trauma in our lives, a lot of throat issues that I had, a lot of bronchitis growing up. I had bulimia when I was a teenager. I was a dancer, and my best friend died at 16 and a half. My dad had had several affairs when we were young kids, which I'd come to know about when I was a teenager. I didn't realize my sexual abuse had affected me the way that it had until I became a teenager, because I then realized that I was abused. You know, I didn't know it was wrong when I was a little girl. And a big part of me working through my own shame was wanting to play doctor doctor with other kiddies, like, oh, come, let's explore our sexual parts, you know. And I didn't realize it was wrong, so I carried a lot of shame, a lot of anger as a young girl. So I started my bulimia journey, just wanting to self-purge, wanting to, you know, just so much hatred inside of me, hatred for my uncle, of the realization of what he did to me. And didn't tell my parents for some reason, just didn't tell my parents. You know, I thought I used to remember having these nightmares that my dad would be drunk and he would take a rifle and shoot. If I told my dad, that he would shoot my uncle, you know, because my uncle was very much a part of our lives. His family was very much a part of our lives. And lost my best friend at 16 and a half, and then got involved with guys, and they all cheated on me. Hang on, that's a generalization. 90% of them would leave me for another woman. So there was this pattern that I was recreating about me not being good enough for guys, you know. And I want to be clear, I was very controlling. Okay, I wasn't the easiest person to live with. Very, 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 very controlling and not trusting masculine energy. And what I came to realize in the last 15 years is that I had a very deep, deep seated conditioning and feeling of hating men. So not only with the sexual abuse, but my mom telling me, do not let men dominate you, Michelle. I remember it. Don't let men dominate you. Well, in my controlling ways, all I ever did was let men dominate me in their controlling ways, because energy is energy, and we reflect what we're giving out, you know, and it's being reflected to us continuously. And it would be manipulative, it would be in a way that I never ever thought it was controlling, but it was controlling. So, you know, every time a man had cheated, you know, and left me for another woman, I just felt helpless. Self-worth was depleted. And then a very big traumatic experience at the age of 24. I was a sales rep in my previous life, and I knocked over and killed a young girl in Johannesburg.
Okay.
And I just suppressed it. It was massive, 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 massive. And I went to one counselor, and all she did was give me antidepressants. And I said to her, please do not give me antidepressants, because my grandmother, my mother's mother, had a lot of fears, a lot of anxiety. She had, I think, between 5 and 7 mental nervous breakdowns. But if you hear about her life, her trauma, it's massive. You know, her mother, my nana's mother, had tried to kill her with an axe when she was a young girl. You know, so, and then I'd heard about how my grandfather, my mother's father, had had numerous affairs. So do you see the pattern of
Yeah.
what it carried on throughout? And then I fell in love with a guy a few months after I'd knocked over and killed this young girl, and moved from Joburg to Cape Town. And after 2 months we were engaged, 8 months married. I'll never forget, in my wedding photos I'm blotchy, like literally blotchy, like the nervousness around me, which shows me in my body, knowing what I know now, that what the hell was I thinking? But I just wanted somebody to rescue me, Aurelie. Like, please just show me that you love me. Just show me that you love me. And he just loved me. You know, he was like, I'm going to take you in. And the reality is I had so much going on. What was I thinking at the time? I clearly wasn't. I just wanted some man to take me up, rescue me, and hold me. And you know, my dad and I had a very tumultuous relationship for many, many years. We fought, my dad and I. But the alcohol was a very big part of the fighting, and I was a big part of the you aren't going to get to me kind of thing. So the anger was there a lot. And I had to work through many, many levels and layers of the anger that I carried and the hatred that I carried towards men. And at the age of 32, so I got married at the age of 26. And then we went from Cape Town to London. A year later, well, we were married for about 4 years. And then I fell pregnant in London, had a beautiful baby girl. And then we decided to come back to South Africa. And then he left me for another woman. And my mom saw all the signs and she was like, but then we had cell phones. She's like, Michelle, he's got 2 cell phones. And I was like, no, this would never happen. Never, never, never. Like, I trusted this man with my life. And then 1.5, 2 years of going backwards and forwards between me living in South Africa, him living in London, him coming back for 3 weeks, going back to London, coming, and he was like, my mom was like, Michelle, he's having an affair. No, 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 but he convinced me it was for work, it was for work. And then I was raising this little baby girl with the help of my parents. And you know that famous word and statement, never say never. My ego was crushed because I thought I was this highfalutin person who would never go back to her hometown, this little mining town that is very wholesome. But I was like, I'd never land up back there, and I did. And landed back up with my parents at the age of 33, living in my parents' their home. And it was just a very crushing experience, me living in London, creating this life for me, buying a flat in London. My ex-husband got me blacklisted because he had gambled money away. There's just bits of my story that I'm sort of adding to, where I then went to a clairvoyant because I was so angry at life. Had this little baby girl, and I was like, something's got to be different, man. Like, how did I, at the age of 33, land up with my parents, with the baby girl, just depleted in every level, on every level. My period, I was bleeding for 3 weeks at a time. But the anger, the fighting that happened with my ex-husband over the phone, oh man, it was just like, I need something different. There's got to be a reprieve. And I went to go see a clairvoyant, and this young man just said to me, you just don't love yourself. Those words, I just remember that. And I was like, just help me with my anger. Like, what do you mean? I don't love myself. Just, you people are supposed to help me with my anger. And that was where my spirit clearly was showing me at a time of, you've got to do something different, Michelle. And only I could take responsibility for myself. And I went away on a weekend with hospice. His mom worked for hospice, and he said, you know what, go away on this weekend. And interesting enough, this was 9 years after I'd knocked over and killed this young girl. And there was a court case that happened. I want to be clear in how I share this information, because somebody had realized that my parents had immigrated from Zimbabwe to South Africa in the apartheid era. She was a young black girl, and all this person had commented was like, oh, what the hell, is she not in jail? Well, the court case went backwards and forwards for about a year and a half, and I was acquitted because I was on my right side of the road. This young girl had run across the road, and I didn't see her. I had had a cool drink, and I put a straw in, and we just connected, we collided, and it was a soul contract. And her mom actually phoned me about 6 months after her death, her mom. And I'll never forget this. I thought somebody was playing a trick on me, and her mom said to me, I want to find out how you are. And it broke my heart. I didn't know she was a young girl. I was told that this was a woman in her 60s, 70s, that she was a big girl. And I just cried. I sobbed and sobbed, and I said, how did you get my number? And she said, I just want to know how you are. She said it was her second accident. At the age of 7, she ran across the road. She didn't have a good road sense. But it's heartbreaking, no matter how I share the story, it's heartbreaking. And I've done so much work around this. And I've met her. I've met her in a hypnosis session, and her little spirit was so joyful, so beautiful. So it was a soul contract. But yes, I was acquitted because I was on my side of the road. And no matter, like I say, no matter how I share it, it's a heavy story to share.
Oh, it is. Thank you for sharing, because
Thank you.
your
Yeah.
gift is,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so I went on this weekend retreat, and the facilitator that chose me, but I chose her, I'll never forget it. It was interesting how spirit was already guiding me because I was chatting. I'm a chatterbox, and I was chatting to everybody, meeting everybody, and you had three facilitators to choose. And I was like, I don't think I like that one. Well, that one chose me as much as I chose her because it was the only space that was left on the board. I was like, oh damn it. And it was rightfully so because she got me to feel that weekend. 9 years later, she got me to feel how I felt about knocking over and killing this young girl. And my head, it felt like my whole head had split open. We had massage therapists there and they were massaging my head. And this facilitator just held me. And you know what was fantastic about the connection with this beautiful friend of mine is that she too had knocked over a young black girl. She too had been sexually abused when she was young. She too had had a husband that had an affair. And our timelines were so kind of like in sync. She had 4 children. Well, she has 4 children. So she it's kind of like she got me. And you know what I've realized in our stories, in our sharing, when I share my story and when I work with clients who have been sexually abused, there's a resonance in our journey. Even though the story is completely different, it's like, oh my God, yes, you understand. You've been sexually abused too, you know, not you, but you know, I'm saying when a client goes, oh Michelle, I understand. And I remember to go back to this day in Wanaka, how I remember sharing my story and I was like, taking a breath, looking at the crowd and going, this doesn't, like, am I supposed to? But women came up to me afterwards because they were crying and they were saying to me, Michelle, thank you. So much happened to me in the same way. You know, father was an alcoholic, mother who was angry, hit, you know, beaten. You know, there's just elements to my story that sort of resonate with people. And so to go back to how I became a medium, that was a part of my journey where the more I let go of the old trauma, the more I started engaging in different courses. That weekend in hospice led me to go and work and, study a 14-week counseling skills course, which I was going through my divorce at the time. And in the 14 weeks, it was helping me get through, once a week, it was helping me get through my divorce. But because of what my ex-husband and I were going through, I think it was about a year and a half, 2 years, where I was like, you know what, I just need a man. Like I just wanna be engaged in a life again, you know, and like have some good sex. and and I did. I had this guy that again, you know, showed me love towards me and my daughter, and it's interesting the timelines because he just loved me. And then my ex-husband, which we weren't even divorced at the time, he came back from London and he wanted to give us another go. And I said, no. I'm like, I've met this guy and it was great because I'd taken him back 3 times over a space of 2 years. And I said to him, I'm going to divorce you because I don't want to do life like this. I can't do life like this. And I still, up until that point, didn't know he was having an affair. He just kept denying it, denying it.
Oh, wow.
So I then got involved with this man, even though we were still married on paper. And I got involved with this guy for 6 months. And my daughter, interesting enough, was having her tonsils out. And I then broken up with this guy. And my ex-husband and I, still married on paper, let me be clear, we were sitting at the hospital. I said, okay, I've now had an affair. I'm sure you have. Give me the, just be honest. You know, there's nothing better than just honesty, brutal freaking honesty, in my opinion. Like just purge it because we've got nothing left to lose. And he went, yep, I've had an affair and this and this and this. And he got very involved in the drug part of life. And I was like, who the hell are you? Like, what the hell happened, you know? Not the man that I'd married. And he just like was, Michelle, I got involved in drugs, da 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 da. And like this woman showed up and it was like, what have I got to lose?
Mm.
And I said, okay, well, I'm now glad I had an affair because that would have been heartbreaking. And like, I don't know why, it kind of like made it feel easier. Like I didn't feel so guilty about being with this other man, even though I was having good sex. And but it was like, okay, all right. You know, when you just have that moment of like, there's clarity, and it's done. No more guilt, no more shame. But we've always been really good friends, and that's what I came to realize. And I said to him, okay, you know what? We have a baby girl to raise. You're now back in this country in South Africa. How do we be the best versions of who we can? And what he didn't share with me is that he was bringing his girlfriend back to South Africa at the time because I was like, okay, we still haven't gotten divorced. So maybe we can do this again. We can give this another go. And then he was bringing her. And she's beautiful. Let me share with you, she's a beautiful woman. And I decided, through the help of my beautiful friend Vicky, to bring her into my life, to engage in the life of being a good friend to my ex-husband, because we had a little girl. Yeah, crazy. Sometimes I go, what the hell was I thinking? At my 40th birthday party, I had them there. I remember sitting looking at the room and going, what was I thinking? But you know what? I brought her into my life because we had a little girl that we had to nourish. And I'll never forget a nursery school teacher. My little girl was about 3.5, 4, and I then got it re-involved with my now second husband. My divorce had gone through, and my this teacher called me and she goes, "Gosh, Michelle, I don't know how you've done it, but I want to acknowledge what you're doing for Gabby,
Mm.
because she's very balanced in who she is, and I've never heard of this before. But again, I attribute so much of the journey for this facilitator, this mentor, this friend that I'd met that was on a similar journey to me, had so many similarities to me, because she said, Mish, you can be angry at him. You can be angry at yourself. And this was a big part of my journey, Aurelie, was forgiving myself
Mhm.
in the journey, forgiving myself as a 5-year-old. I know it might sound crazy to a lot of people, but I had to forgive myself at the age of 5 for not knowing that that was wrong. Nobody knows that it's wrong until you know. And over the period, I then engaged in courses. So I did my counseling skills. I then became a part-time hospice caregiver. And then I I then studied neurolinguistic programming, and over time I just let go, let go, let go, and I purged, I cried, and I let go, and I asked questions, and I was just engaged. I felt like it was my time to just learn again. And I wasn't the best student at school. I want to be clear. Like I'm an experiential learner. I'm not a give me the book and textbook and that's how I take it all in. But what I realized over time is, as I became a counselor, is that I was starting to connect. And I'll never forget, one of my very, very first connections with spirit was a woman sitting opposite me. And for those of us who are therapists or starting out, I think it's very important to just share, just start out, man. I literally had two chairs in my bedroom as a counselor. That's how I started out, in my bedroom. I didn't have a therapy room. And nobody gave a shit. Nobody cared. They came and I said, this is where we're going to sit, because I needed, case studies for neurolinguistic programming, and I was like, we're in my bedroom. Is that okay? Yep, that's okay. So just start out. Wherever you are in life, just start out. And I'll never forget this woman sitting opposite me, and I went, I've got this baby. I see this baby in your arms, and she's in this beautiful dress with dark hair, big, beautiful eyes. This woman was beautiful. And she started crying. She goes, how do you know that? And I said, I don't know. I just see this beautiful baby that you're holding. She said, Michelle, she was stillborn. And this was the dress that I had her in. And I get goosebumps when I share this, because I didn't know that. I knew there were mediums. I obviously knew there were clairvoyants. But that's when I started to realize that I was connecting to more. And over time, I just started to trust. I started to trust there was more. I started to get messages. My ego is out a lot of the times, and I'll share with you why. Because I would meet somebody and I'd say, by the way, I'm somebody like a grandfather figure here, or a grandmother. And I say my ego because I never asked permission. It's very important for me, unless you're obviously coming to an event, because you're coming open. But when you're sitting at a tea party or a dinner, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, by the way, I've got somebody to share, and they're like, what? And they're busy eating and like, for me, that's ego.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of it, because even when I was a stay-at-home mother, I'd go to these gatherings and I'd say, okay, because my self-worth, my lack of self-worth was very non-self-worthy, and I'd go to these places and where everybody was in the corporate world, and I'd say, okay, like, just let somebody ask me, what do I do? What do I do? Because a stay-at-home mother is an entrepreneur, let me share with you. Okay. We have a lot of life skills, in my opinion. But I would go with ego, like let somebody just, as soon as I started labeling myself, let somebody just ask me so I could practice that. What is it called? The elevator. Have you heard of the elevator quote? Or the elevator sharing. I'm not even getting this right, but John DeMartini taught this, where as a chiropractor, you climb in the elevator and your elevator pitch. That's right, your elevator pitch.
Yeah. Right. So
And it's like you got to tell people in the space of time how quick you are, and what you do, like because like and he would hand out leaflets, and he'd like say, okay, I've got X amount of levels, and I need to pitch to them. I've got this amount of time. Well, that was my I'd put it out there to the universe and to my spirit guides, and I'd say, okay, I'm going to this event. Let somebody just ask me. Let somebody just ask me, what is it I do? Whether it be a stay-at-home mother or a clairvoyant or a psychic or whatever. Nobody would ask me, okay? Well, of course nobody would ask me because I'm coming from an arrogant place. But it is funny because it's like actually when you just show up in who you are and you realize that it's the knowing that's here, it's the truth of who I am, the love of what and thank you for your sharing, because I've come to realize that I just love it. I love bringing spirit through, and I'm the facilitator. And as you've noticed, like I'm not the person, and I just for some reason I cannot stand up front and go, you over there, you're the blonde person over there. Your grandmother's come. I have to be in their faces.
oh, yes, yeah, I remember that. That's quite
Do you
funny.
remember that? And I hug and I hold and it's just a part of who I am, and it's not wrong or right, it just is. I take my shoes off and then I'm there because I feel like it's so personal when you're there with the person. And I I love what I do, but I've come from a very victim space. I want to be very clear. Victim martyr, even in the ego of ask me what it is I do, it's like that's the martyr inside of us, and I've had to really work on being in my victimhood because I've literally cleared a wedding table in my victim space. Gone to a wedding, my cousin's wedding, and people have said, well, what do you do? And what, literally, like, my husband left me and for another woman, and I've got a baby girl, and how dare he? And, and they're like, okay, this is awkward. And then all they've done is ask my name. Like, what do you do and who are you? But I just wanted somebody to feel for me.
Yeah.
I just wanted somebody to just be there for me. And what's interesting in a part of my journey, even when I was divorcing my husband, even though my mom had been through what she'd been through with my dad, she chose to stay. And all I wanted was sole custody of our daughter, because my fear is that he came and went and went and came, and if anything happened, like I wanted to have full custody of her to, be able to make decisions for her. And my parents, when I was living with them, didn't like the guy that I was, seeing at the time. And my parents said they were going to take my ex-husband's space in court, that they were going to take his side in court, because my mom and dad said, my dad in one of his drunken states the one night said to me, Michelle, I'm not surprised he left you. And it was I broke a chair that night. I want to be very clear, my anger. I picked up the dining room table chair and I threw it, and I lost my shit. I lost my shit a lot of the times in my journey of healing. Not only when I was in sitting in front of a therapist, like that was a very angry moment. And then I got blamed for many months that I broke the dining room table chair. And I was like, do you remember what you said to me in your drunken state, Dad? But they wanted me to stay with my ex-husband. And I said no. I will never trust him again. And it actually wasn't about him, it was about me trusting me. And it was hard, it was painful. I couldn't believe that these were my parents. These were my parents that chose to want to be in the space of being there with him. It's like, choose me, just choose me. There were always those moments of how does this happen?
Mm.
But it was their perspective, it was their pain. They were in their own place of pain, they were in their own place of their journey. Does it make sense?
Mhm. Oh yeah, for sure it does. Yeah.
Yeah, and over time, I've come to forgive my parents. It's still a work in progress, but I came to realize when I step back into my forgiveness of myself and my journey and my compassion and my learning to love who I am and learning to forgive their part in my story, that's where my elevated space of my consciousness started to change. And because when I'm in my victimhood, when we're in our victimhood, we're in the lower vibrational frequency. And that was when I started connecting to more. And the universe is vast. Our angel teams are huge. Our guides are massive, and our guides change. They can change consistently. We have one that we come in with. My team has been the Council of Eight. I've realized this in the hypnosis session. They were kind of looking over me from the time I was conceived. But forgiveness is key in my journey. Forgiveness of those who have most certainly hurt me, haven't showed up for me. And I've been incredibly naive in my journey of not knowing that people do not realize the part that they play in any of our journeys.
Mm.
I don't think or believe that people are born to hurt each other.
No,
I don't think that babies are born angry. They're just conceived in anger,
that's right.
and that's a big part of my learning is that my second husband, I drove him mad on my journey in the beginning because I just wanted to know everything about feelings and I was over analyzing everything and, what does this sore throat mean? What does this mean? And he's just like, can you just stop? Can you just, like, I was really deep diving, like, I just wanted to clear my shit. I just wanted to clear the ancestral. And the reality is that it's so multidimensional, and it's so multi-leveled and multi-layered.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, it takes some time. Yeah,
It takes some time,
a lot of time
a
actually.
lot of time.
Yeah, you
And
think you finished, and then yeah, a few months after, another experience. You're like, another layer. I haven't seen that one yet. Here
yep,
we go
you picked
again.
up. Yeah, yes,
It seems that it's getting easier because we sort of know that okay, it's another layer. It will, it
yes,
will be
yes, yes,
clean.
yes, yes. And that's okay. Even in those layers, it's again learning to either forgive or learning to find clarity or learning to find compassion. And for those that have brought the change, or for those of us that have been in a lot of pain, and that's part of what I've just come to realize over time is that it's all okay. It will unfold and it will manifest in the way that it's going to. And a big part of my journey has been learning to forgive my parents. And it's been said that we choose our parents, and a big part of it, even when my mom passed over a year and a half ago, I didn't realize that how much of my journey of forgiving my mom was going to unfold, and I was still angry. My mom had Alzheimer's, and I was still angry at her, and then I had to learn how to forgive slowly but surely.
That is such
So,
a powerful word and notion, the forgiveness others, and also you were saying forgiving yourself, because I think forgiveness is like having the ability to finally detach ourselves from the experience, from the emotional, negative emotion from this specific experience, and then we are finally free, and we can then be compassionate and loving for ourselves, but also for the others. And I think it's the key, and that is probably the hardest part, to forgive, yes, the person that hurt ourselves, but also ourselves, as you were saying. That's
Yes.
big one.
Massive. And I'll never forget the time that I went on this weekend, hospice weekend retreat. Um, and then I remember then going for follow-up consultations with my friend who became my friend, who was my counselor. And it was fascinating for me because it was one of the first or second sessions I had when she took me down my inner child, took me to meet my little girl inside of me, the age of 4 or 5, and to forgive her for my part in being sexually abused. And I was like, huh? Like, I couldn't, I was devastated. I was like, what? Like, wow. And I remember crying. I mean, I've cried and cried and cried. And, often a big part of one of my gifts is activating a person's heart. And I'm able to feel into when the heart contracts. I'm able to feel when there's any pain. And it's kind of like a line that goes through. And then when the heart opens and expands. And when the heart contracts, when there's vulnerability, for me, that's when the body lets go.
Mm.
For me, that's when a person is so courageous. Because I was most certainly taught, why are you crying? Stop crying, for a big part of my journey, massive. And I remember being a teenager sobbing and trying to hold it back, because I was stop crying, just stop crying, you just want to express, you just want to say, just hold me. It's not all about the hormones. It's not all about being in menopause and just the hormones. It's not about that. It's just all we want to do is be made to feel safe. That is it. And even if it's holding somebody's hand, so even when I'm doing my big groups, that's why I like being there with the person. Just saying, I've got you. And that's all Spirit want. They just want to let us know that they've got us, that they're around, even though they're not here in the physical body, that they're around all the time. And often, I know in my journey, I haven't been made to feel safe. I haven't trusted human beings a lot.
But it was quite a journey that you went through. It's just yeah, to have this gift, it's such a journey.
It has most certainly been, and I kind of look back sometimes, and even when I'm sharing, and I was fortunate enough to be on quite a few podcasts, and I share it very differently but similarly, and often I think, wow, gosh, I'm here. But that I know is part of my journey, is that we can find bliss, we can find joy, we can let go of the old, but it's letting go of the old belief systems, of the old paradigms, of the old ways that we've been told. And I know that I can be a very big energy for a lot of people, like da-da, like I shine, like da, here I am, and I'm like, tone it down, Michelle, tone it down, and so I'm kind of like sort of moderating myself at times, like okay, oh, shut up, and the more I'm trying to tell myself to shut up, and then sometimes I'm like, I'm just in the energy of feeling with everybody, and sometimes I just realize that in my state of joy, how can you tone it down? And that's where I know that sharing my story has been a very, 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 very big part of the healing work that shows up for others. And I don't know if you find this with your clients, but often, often, often I've heard, I'm such an empath and I feel everybody's stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, where are you at in your healing work on yourself? Oh, well, I'm just starting out. I'm like, okay, you need to know your shit, because that for me is projection. That for me, because yes, we're all connected into the the interness of the oneness, okay, which is strong. It's strong. We know that we're all part of the universal flow of energy. We're source, we're God, we're nature. But until you know your own stuff, your own unconscious feelings, and we still don't know, I still don't know all my own stuff, but I'm very, very, very sort of aware of when I'm holding space for somebody else, I have to be completely in my presence of my heart to know what I'm picking up on somebody else's. And it's kind of the energies like this, Aurelie, where you oscillate, you kind of like, oh, there it, oh, okay, is this mine? And I always ask, even if a client is crying with me, and the tears come from me, I always ask in the moment, is this mine? And I'll get a yes or no. And if I get a yes, I'm like, okay, there's more work to be done.
Mhm.
And then I've got to take a big breath in that moment so I can go back into my field of I want to say creation, my field of holding space for somebody else, in my presence. And it may not even make sense to anybody, but often I know as empaths we most certainly feel. I know that as a young girl, I most certainly felt a lot of the energy that was happening around me. But as a young girl, when you've been shut down, I learned to protect my heart. I learned to block my heart.
And you're
And
right, 'cause I think when you have a trauma, not only you feel your own perception, but you also feel, as you say, everything that is in the environment. So yes, it can be very yeah, it can be very overwhelming, because not only suddenly you feel the anger, the frustration, the guilt, maybe of even the perpetrator, of probably feeling all that, and it's like, what is mine, what is not? And I think it's when we dissociate.
100%. And that's a big part of even my learning of working through my own trauma and my PTSD. Living in South Africa, I did not know that coming to New Zealand, a friend of mine said to me a few years ago, she goes, Mish, do you think you and your husband have PTSD? And I was like, huh? Like, I'm a therapist. You'd think I'd know that. Um, oh, let me tick that one off the box. Alrighty. Because no, I'm an empath. I think I've got my stuff together, guys. No, I don't. Um, and that's why I follow people like Dr. Gabor Mate and Joe Dispenza and the late Louise Hay and Louise Hay at the age of 81. I'll never forget tapping. Have you ever done EFT tapping?
Very cool.
Beautiful tool. And she was with Nick Orton and she's sitting on a couch, and I watched this about 12 years ago, and she had a tweak in her neck, and I was like, oh my God, Louise Hay. Yep, she's 81. She's got her shit together. She's got it together. And an old thought, an old feeling came up when she was 2.5, because it was the energy that was in the emotion that was in her neck. And I remember feeling two different, very real emotions in that moment. Like, well, number one, devastated and like, what? Are you telling me I'm going to be 80, 81 and still working on my stuff? Yep. Tick. And then in another way, going, wow, I clearly needed to hear this. Because it's okay to not have all our stuff together as therapists. It's okay. And it's most certainly, I think, when I watch these people who have been working on themselves for a very long time, but share openly about their past, because that for me is being real, Aurelie. That for me is being authentic. I'm not the most ideal person to live with, because I can be so to go back to disassociation, I started cold plunging last year here in the ocean in Nelson. And I had a beautiful friend that was here from Queenstown at the time, and I was like, "That's it, come on, we got to do this." And there was a big group of people, and I was feeling, I could remember feeling, I was standing back in the crowd, and this was my little girl. I could feel my little Michelle, just going, "Oh, this feels uncomfortable." Excuse me, my husband and I were separated at the time, and I was watching him, and everybody just loved him because he was doing quite a bit of cold plunging. And I remember feeling like very resentful and being like, if only you live with him. Blah, 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 blah. So all these different emotions. Like, oh, he's the nice guy now, but ha ha ha. I'm like, stop it, Michelle, stop it, just stop it. And but I remember walking into the ocean, and I was the last person to walk in. It was a big group of people, and there were the TV cameras there, and I could feel my body feeling very uncomfortable. And I walked into the ocean, and because I work with tonings and tunings and vibration, I whistle, I chant a lot in my sessions, and I let out this big la 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 la, like it just came through me. I was mortified. Okay, I couldn't stop it. Let me just share. Like I only got up to my knees, at that moment. It was something like la 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 la, or like whoa, like I can't remember. Well, I was known as the chick who was the screamer. Okay, at the coffee shop afterwards. Are you the one that screamed? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. I felt like sucking my thumb, like crawling up into a ball and sucking my thumb, which, by the way, I did as a little girl.
Yeah.
Okay, sucked my thumb. And the shame, because my husband came and he has we did hypnobirthing when I was pregnant with my second child, and I completely dissociated. I left my body. It was full moon, and it was in August last year. And my friend Linda was like, Mesh, it's okay. Look at the moon. Feel her energy, babe. She's here. And I was completely delirious, completely out of my body. Have you ever had that feeling?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Just like I was like, I didn't, like I knew I was in the water, but I didn't know where, and I could feel my kidneys singeing. Like it was like, what the hell? And I was watching everybody. I was kind of like, you're here, but you're not here. And I was watching everybody. I was watching the steam come off the water because everybody was already in their groups and the energy was quite quiet at that time. And my husband was right here, and I just remember tuning into his eyes and his voice. But I just left. He's like, you've got this, man, you've got this, you've got this. And I was like, just breathe, just breathe. And honestly, I was feeling all these different sensations. And he said to me, just listen to your body. And I think I was in the water for like maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes. And he just got me to breathe, and then I climbed out. But the healing happened for the rest of the day. So we went to the coffee shop. So I had all these people like, oh my God, are you the one who's the screamer? And I was like, and I was feeling very ashamed because I thought I'd embarrassed him. I thought I'd embarrassed my friend. I was embarrassed. We climbed in the car after the coffee, and my husband said, I've seen this happen to you before. When I had an emergency Caesar with both my children, but my second born, and I disassociated on the table, and the anesthetist said to my husband, "You better keep," because I was like, they were cutting me open already, and I just was like, I don't know, I was panicking, and the anesthetist said, "If you don't calm her down, I'm going to need to give her a general and put her out." And all I wanted to do was see my baby come out. But what had actually happened, and this is trauma based and how we hold on to the trauma, was my head took me straight to my daughter's birthing 6.5 years ago. And I could feel all those different sensations. And my husband the hypnobirthing helped. And he was pressing here and he was pressing here and just talking to me. And he's like, it's okay, I'm right here. I don't even know what he said, but he brought me into my body. And then I calmed down, completely calmed down. So hypnotherapy is a miracle, in my opinion. It's a miracle. Tapping also. I mean, there's so many tools out there, but every modality is a miracle to me. And so yes, then I came home, had a magnesium bath, and my friend, I just needed that nurturing, nourishing energy because we're driving home. And my husband said, I've seen you like, we've got to sort this out, typical man. We've got to fix you. I'm like, don't do this. Don't make me wrong in what's come up because I'm feeling very, 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 I was feeling very, just very traumatized, but I was feeling all these different emotions and just very like vulnerable. And I just needed somebody to hold me. Once again, little girl. So I ran a magnesium bath, and my friend just kept saying, Mish, it's okay. And I was very just just yeah, vulnerable is the word that comes to mind. And she was that nourishing energy. She was that person who's just like, it's okay, didn't make anything wrong or right. So do you see how it all happened for me, for my healing to happen? Didn't feel ideal, but I had to connect with my little 2-year-old self, little 3-year-old self, and keep just saying to her, it's okay. It's okay. It's not your fault, and many different voices in my head, many different critical voices, obviously the shame that came up. And then also teaching my husband, you can't fix me because I'm not broken.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the disassociation still happens every now and again. And it was a very healing journey. And I can now go into the ocean. I can now cold plunge with my breath, being present. I do it very differently to everybody because everybody just trojans into it. It's a very healing therapy for me. And only up until, because I started it and then we got into summer and then I went back into winter this year, and then I was like, too much, too much, too much. And then I was like, okay, the one morning I woke up about 2, 3 weeks ago and I'm like, I've got this. I can Trojan in. But I
Yeah.
said to my husband, I don't want to do it with a group. And it's such an accomplishment when we stay present. For me, that's part of the acknowledgement of going, I managed to just walk in and breathe and breathe and breathe. And I got into the water without any tears, because every time there's been kind of tears, because I walk into my knees, I breathe, I breathe, I breathe, and I watch the group, but there's no judgment.
Mm.
There's no criticism of how I used to be, because that's where the brain takes us. That limbic brain takes us to the fight, flight, fright, and then the judgment, judgment, blah, 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 blah. And I walked in and I went, and I got in and I was breathing, 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 and there were no tears. And I went, woohoo! I did it! Tick!
Wow.
And it was just so awesome. So my point being is that none of our journeys are ever wrong or right. None of our journeys are ever the same as anybody else's, ever.
No, yeah, we're all very unique and different. And I think as soon as you were talking before about being a victim and pull me. And I think when we realize that we have been a victim a big part of our journey, and then we say, you know what? Now I'm ready to open this bag full of shit.
Yes.
And this is when we actually can have, like you have your friend that was just at the right moment, when we attract the right person, the right tool, the right therapy. And this is when, yeah, the journey really starts. And it's so powerful when we come out of this victimhood, because your story, like, obviously it resonates with some part of mine, because I also was a very big victim, and I still am. But it's really what is holding us back. And like, we can't move as long as we stay as a victim. Poor me, we can't say, well, you know what, I don't have to be a victim, I can be whoever I want to be.
Yes.
It's so powerful.
That's powerful. Yes. And you know what's even more powerful is actually owning that it's okay to be the victim of our story every now and again. I was in victim mode because I lived such a disassociated life for such a long time. Now, this is a story about how we remember when we in feeling of our mother's womb. So I remember sitting talking to my mom the once and saying, Mom, I remember this journey, the story of my mom throwing plates. I remember the color of the plates. I remember the dining room. And I was like, Mom, I remember you throwing plates at Dad. Like you were just, I joked about it a few weeks ago, saying my mom must be a Greek in a past life somewhere. Um, the Greeks throw plates like, hola, ole. No, it was at my dad. Um, but she looked at me and she said, That's impossible, Michelle. How can you remember that? And I said, I do. She said, Impossible. I was about 7 months pregnant with you. So we remember I took on those feelings, and we do, so it's part of just the journey of so much, of of that anxiety, taking on my grandmother's anxiety, which then became my mother's anxiety, which, underneath anger lies deep sadness. It was very seldom I saw my mom cry. My mom was just angry, but she was just actually very misunderstood. My understanding is that in my sexual abuse story, and I told my parents at the age of 33, and my mom, like, I truly, truly, truly believed that my mother was sexually abused herself, but she just couldn't share it. She couldn't express it. So underneath anger lies deep sadness. And when we just open up, like you say, you just open it up and it's like, blah, just let it come. It comes. And it's so freeing, and it allows our body to let go. It allows us to just go, okay, with no judgment, with absolute no judgment. And there's an absolute truth in the energy of who we are, and as above, so below, but as within, without. So when we're in the victimhood, and I did, even in that clearing of the wedding table story, which is so funny, I was so disassociated from myself within my trauma. I just lived in fight, flight, fright, fight, flight, fright. And you've heard of fawn, fight, fight, fright, and fawn. Fawn is the people pleaser, just wanting to please everybody, which was my mom, which my mom taught me. Be nice, let everybody like you, give to others, give to others, give to others, give to others, Michelle, because the more you give, the more they'll like you. And then they let you down, or they disappoint you. And then you left with the space of, oh my God, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? Okay, I'm gonna bring somebody else into my life, and I'm just gonna love them and just give them everything and just, treat them the way I want to be treated. And that's the beauty of not only working on ourselves. It's for me the most incredible honoring is when somebody would say to me, Michelle, and I've had this a lot, where somebody would say, Michelle, your name keeps popping up, your name keeps popping up, or I gave them my business card a year ago. And they're like, oh, your business card fell out of my bag. And I was like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. and and I know I deep dive in sessions because I truly, truly believe in, number one, obviously holding space for people, helping them to feel safe, but helping them to realize that they are more than anything that they can comprehend, no matter what their story is, no matter what their trauma is. And I've had people not come back to me because they've said it's taken them 2 weeks, 2 months to unravel. And they've been pissed off at me, okay? And I've gone, yep, I know. But I'm okay to be that person, to be pissed off at, because I know it's not personal. It's actually not about me. And I'm so honored that people come and they say, wow, Michelle, I had no idea how much I had to unravel. And the nervous system is just like blah, 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 on. And yes, sometimes it's not ideal because I know as therapists we want to hold space and keep them safe all the time. And it's not wrong or right. I've had to learn to not judge it, but trust my spirit team to say, okay, the body is ready. And I listen to the body, I listen to the vibration of the human being. But the stories of what we tell ourselves when we leave is where we reconnect into the old trauma. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
The stories. She did this to me. I cannot believe I went to her. She was supposed to make me feel safe. And now I'm just unraveling. And the unraveling is actually when somebody is just letting go. Like you said it, like there, it just comes, man. But we don't like that.
No, we don't. Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Under the carpet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was fine. I was fine. And I'll just wipe my tears.
Like, oh, that's too much. No.
Yeah, exactly.
Not like that. Not like that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. No, I'll just park it. And yet the body, the heart is saying, just bring it, just let it go.
That's the thing, because the bloody body remembers everything, like everything. And that's what
Everything.
people don't realize, like how the body and the mind are so connected.
So interconnected.
Every pain, every disease is from our past.
100%. 100%. And it's a past, that's a timeline. I always say to clients, Think of it like this: we have trillions of cells, and our cells die off and they rebirth themselves, but our cells have memory, and every cell remembers. And sometimes, yes, it might be the illusion of the story, but it's your story, it's your version of your story, it's your perception. I'm not here to take it away. Even when I'm doing readings, I've had people say to me, "Oh, Mish, I can feel that. Can you tap into this? Like, I can feel that." And it might be on a very deep, dark place of like, I think my uncle sexually abused me. And I always ask in that moment, is this their truth? Because it may be, it may not be. It may just be a story that the body's remembering, but remember, it may be a feeling that that the uncle made the body, the little person, feel uncomfortable. Does it make sense? Like, I know my sexual abuse was 100% real because I remember it exactly as it happened.
Can it be a memory from the lineage, something that happened to your mom or not your story, but when you have clients, when because it's our story. Sometimes we've got a feeling we remember, but is it really our story, as you're saying, or is it maybe lineage also, the grandparents' story that we keep in ourselves, because it's not only physical?
I think it can be all the above.
Okay.
So for me, when I know that it's definitely the person, the client sitting in front of me, that they're in their trauma, I feel it here and I call it the conscious mind. I feel it here because I feel everything that the person is feeling in their vibration in their body. So I feel it in my body, and I want to just, what's the word? All these myths that we're told as the energetic beings or the therapists that we are. Often I've been told, don't hug a person because you pick up on all their stuff. I've been told, Michelle, you must be incredibly exhausted because you're just feeling everything in your body. And I'm like, well, we're transparent. In my energetic realm of who I am, the energy of who I am, my body's feeling everything. But when the client leaves, the client leaves. I
Yeah,
get back into Michelle.
that's right. That's
And whether that be saging myself or taking a few breaths and saying, whew, come back into Michelle, let Michelle be a clear vessel, of light, because that's who we all are. Aurelie is a clear vessel of light. But, if we take on that belief, which I did for a long time, like, oh my God, yes, of course. When somebody's lost a child, to suicide, gosh, of course I feel that. I feel the grief because I put myself in that person's shoes, which is being an empath. And imagine how I would feel in every part of my body if my child committed suicide. It's tough, it's hard, you know, because the head kicks in and goes, "Oh my God, what would I feel like?" But that's part of the conscious mind. So again, it's all of the above. And I don't think that taking the story away from a client is my right. It's their version of their story. It's their perception. It's where they're at. And that takes me to a space of, even when we're socializing, of course I get defensive sometimes if and egoic, where I want to share something. I want to be defensive in my, like, no, I think that's wrong. But when we hold space and we're in a space of compassion and love, we hear that person. We feel the energy of that person and we say, oh, wow, they interesting. I can feel their vibration is very, very defensive right now, and they want to share, they want to be heard. But projection, when I'm defensive, projection to me would be, in my head, as a person, Michelle the therapist, Michelle the medium or the channel, going, listening to that person who's sharing something that they very, very, let's say politics or religion, because those are two things that people are very passionate about, and you're listening to them and you're going, and in my head I'm going, wow, they are very passionate. Wow, a lot of defensive happening there right now. Gosh, Jesus, they carrying a lot of anger. But this is what I'm thinking. Do you know what I mean? That's projection. Instead of saying, wow, I'm just wondering, are you angry about this kind of stuff that comes up? But we often don't speak that. Do you know what I mean? I most certainly don't.
Mm, yeah, that's true.
Because
Especially in New Zealand, we are very polite. Yeah,
yes,
maybe
yes,
in
and
France
that's
it'll be a bit different, but
yes, yes. So I have to obviously, often scan myself and say, "Oh, it's politics. I don't want to go down that road because I don't know a lot about politics. You know, I don't. So I just sit in my space of discernment and be like, oh, I'll observe the energy. I can definitely feel when the energy drops, and then I can very quickly go into a space of fight or flight. I can feel like I'm like, oh, I've got to get out of here. Like this doesn't feel good for me.
yeah.
Or I can go into fight very quickly because remember, I come from a background of fighting. So that for me is, yeah, um, it's a real interesting learning for me when I can feel my defensiveness come up. And, again, if it's about something that I'm not familiar with, that's why I just rather I keep quiet. And especially when there's a lot of alcohol around, I don't even go there. It's not worth it. So for anybody that's watching this, because it's a trip of the switch, especially if we have PTSD. I've noticed this in my own journey, and I'm a lightweight. Okay, I can have one whiskey and water or one gin and tonic, but I can feel still when my defenses are like blah blah blah, and then I'm like, oh my god, I sound like my mother, and I'm like, I don't like myself in that moment, but I can feel immediately where I'm like, oh, I don't feel good. This is not going. This is not really serving anybody, and it is like a little tripwire where the energy can be. That's why alcohol's so amazing when you're in it and everybody's in the good vibe. And then, but it can also be, it can turn like that and it can bring us into a space of old trauma very quickly. And so me personally, when I have a gin and tonic, I sip on it for hours, add lots of ice. I have to be very, very aware because it really just can make me feel just like, meh.
Mm.
And it's just a part of me being social. I do enjoy it. Um, I've had some not nice moments where I've had one or two, and my old trauma comes up, and where I'm a runner. Either my mouth goes and I can feel my nervous system like becoming untangled very quickly, where I start to see things or feel things that don't feel comfortable for me. And it can definitely bring up stuff for my husband and me, and my husband's working through his own PTSD. So for me, I'd rather just be like, no, just enjoy one over 2 to 3 hours, and or have water, because it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. But I've seen it destroy a lot of people because of my own life, and it's not nice. So it's not a judgment. I hope it doesn't come across as a judgment. I hope it's an awareness that I bring to people who are,
Important to talk about this because it's a drug, and but it's a drug that everyone uses, and
yeah,
it's fun. It can be, yeah, it has its time, but it's a drug, so it really alternates our consciousness, the way we're thinking, the way we're behaving, and it's just, yeah, it's not.
yeah. And it's, I didn't know this until last night, believe it or not, but we all have our coping mechanisms. We all have a something that we love. I love my coffee. I love my coffee every morning, okay? And even when I'm preparing for retreats, like I'm preparing for Egypt at the moment, when I prepare for plant medicine, I have my coffee, okay? Even though the shamans say eliminate coffee, I'm like, cheers, here's my coffee, okay? It's my little, everybody has their something. And but up until last night, I was chatting to a friend of mine who's a therapist, and I didn't realize that I was talking about somebody I know that's been on a journey of working through a lot of her trauma in her body, excuse me, and she's done the food, so she went on to paleo because her gut was completely out of alignment and out of balance. She's done the The physical, started exercising. She's done the mental, which is great. And I said to her the once, what about the emotional? So for me, the emotional is the, like you said, like bring it. Oh shit, there's a lot. Oh, let's put it under the carpet. Okay, did I decide on some level, really? But what's interesting in this person's mind, because she said, "Oh no, I'm fine, I'm good." I said, "Okay, not my need." It used to be my need, I'll be very clear, to want to kind of provoke and push to try and say, as a grief and trauma therapist, like, well, have you not thought about the emotional work? But in her world, she goes home and she has 3 to 4 glasses of wine a night and it doesn't affect her. In my world, that's your coping mechanism, that's your numbing.
Numbing, exactly that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whether that's judgmental or not, in my opinion. And then this friend of mine said to me last night, Mish, if this person is drinking 3 or 4 glasses of wine a night, she's an alcoholic. Do you know that? And I went, oh no, didn't know that. In what, where the relative information comes from, whether it's AA or whatever, I'm not too sure because I didn't ask her. And I was like, oh, in my world, that would be an absolute coping mechanism. It's a crutch on some level. You know, coffee is not my crutch. I can most certainly do without coffee. Do you hear the difference? I love coffee. It brings, it's all about the social time that I have with my husband, and we sit and we bring gratitude to our day, and it's time with my animals on our bed, and so there's a whole big thing to our coffee. Coffee's probably not the greatest for my immune system, but I drink water before I have my coffee. I have I have a little shake with berry juice in it, and but that's where I just love the coffee. I love what it brings to my body, but it's not affecting my psyche. I believe that it's stuffing myself up or it's numbing myself. Does that sound contradictory as a therapist? Do you think it does?
No,
And I'm sorry for the
I think
dreamers.
as long as you know that if you don't have coffee for a few days and you won't miss it, I don't think it's and it's probably, if it makes you feel happy and you are able to see that, okay, I'm not numbing anything. Well, yeah, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
people love chocolate. I love chocolate. I can live without, but well, maybe I've got a bit of addiction there, but maybe there is something emotional there. But anyway, but
Exactly, exactly. But you know what? You've actually brought up a very valid point, because when we love sweets or sugar, and sugar was absolutely my addiction, I know that when I'm going through something and I'm starting to learn between the difference between the hormonal phase, okay, and sometimes I just purge, like blah, 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 blah. I'm in my pantry, I'm like, okay, this is hormones. And then I wake up inflamed the next day. I can feel the gunk in my throat. My body feels a little bit uncomfortable. I don't wake up feeling like I'm full of life. Um, but it's very different when I know that I'm going through some healing, because my little girl would be the one that would go and want to have a carrot cake or go and have an ice cream. And I treat little Mish. I say, it's okay, sweetheart. We're treating you, because I might have had a big grieving. Something might have triggered me, and then I'll cry, and then I'm like, gosh, what am I? Oh, I feel like I'm 5 years old today, and I'm going to go take you, I'm taking me, and I'm going to go and have, but I do know that, and I've stopped this, my dark chocolate was next to the side of my bed at night.
yeah, that's important.
And I'm watching one of my favorite shows on my computer, and I'm like, the drawer opens, and I'm like, nobody's watching. Ooh, I'll never forget this in lockdown. This happened in lockdown. It was amazing. We all had our different rooms. We're a family of four. And I'd open my drawer and I'd like have my treats right there with nobody ever having to disturb me, just munching. So that might be the addiction.
Maybe, yeah, maybe a little bit, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think when we realize it's maybe okay, well, at least we're aware of it. It's okay.
Yes, yes, exactly,
Address it
exactly.
and try to work on the emotions that are behind.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I love
Oh,
this story of the hunters in Africa that once a year they go to harvest the honey and they come back to the village and they do like you know, for a week they are doing beers with the honey, and they are, you know, it's like a treat, and they just enjoy it, but because they know it will go away. But
Beautiful.
it's a beauty, because it brings joy, it brings something. And I think
Beautiful.
we should treat life that way and not being drastic. But that's my point of view. That's not.
I 100% agree. And, you know, it's on these spiritual journeys, which we know we are all spirit.
Mm,
We know it. Quantum physics show that we are. And yet we're here to have the human experience.
mm, mm.
And the human experience is all of the above of what we've spoken about: being the victim, being the martyr, being in control every now and again, you know. Like I'll bring up the coffee, um, I want to say allergy, but it's not an allergy. Analogy is, you know, being in control every now and again is kind of realizing, like, actually, sometimes in my unconscious state, you know, my husband would be making the coffee and I just take over. And then you could see he gives me this look. 'Cause I'm like, la 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 la, like I'm in Michelle, like I'm in my happy place, you know. And then, but he gives me this look, and I go, what? He goes, do you know you just try to control it once again? I go, oh, I'm so sorry. Like I was just thinking I was pleasing and just getting involved, you know. And what I'm saying is, it's not wrong or right. That's being human,
Yeah, that's right.
catching ourselves in that moment. But I've most certainly seen in the last 2.5 years, so many people have opened up to the awareness of knowing, knowing, our inner knowing. And I would love to just share with everybody that whoever watches this is that I connect with the Council of Eight. They're beautiful angelic beings of light. And if they resonate with you, you know, come to the gatherings. You're a part of that energy. I'm the channel that they come through.
Mm.
But you may receive a message like Michelle, I heard something from the Council of Eight, you know, and like they might be tapping into you. You know, they're infinite beings. Your guides are your guides. We have, as we are billions on this planet, we have billions of spirit that are here to guide us too.
So maybe tell us a bit about the Council of Eight, like how you're doing the gathering, and how they came up in your life.
So that was beautiful in the sense of the more I was letting go of my old and like I said, they've been, even when I was in South Africa and I was working through a lot of my own stuff, I was still going for counseling, um, doing different modalities, and I would be sitting and I would hear these other voices. But a big part of my journey, Aurelie, has to realize that we are all equal. I always put other people on pedestals. You know more, and of course, people do know more. You know, like if I came to you and I was like, "Oh, this is the thigh muscle," and you're like, "No, it's not, Michelle. This is this this is not the thigh," and I'm like, "No, it's the thigh muscle." Well, you're a massage therapist, and it's like, "Okay, yep. Well, of course you know more." So there's that element to it. But when I came to New Zealand, I was doing a lot more hands-on work, and you know, people coming onto my table in Queenstown, and my hands started doing different things, and these different tonings started coming through me, and then I started connecting with a different just a different vibration. I was like, well, who are you? And they showed me counsel, and I'm in my head I was like, oh, you're all sitting at the table.
What
Like,
I
yep.
have in mind too.
Yeah, exactly. and and they're not. They're just beings of light. They have no form, but they've once walked the earth planes, and they come through in different energies. And the different energies are, they've shown me. Um, uh, can you just push pause for 2 seconds, please? So yeah, my hands just sort of doing things, and this different kind of vibration came through me, and they showed me that they were in different spirit form, from Lady Diana to Nelson Mandela to Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, and they've shared that they are angelic beings of light who've once walked the earth planes, and they have no form, and they come through in a different tone. And the information that they provide, they bring up Akashic records for clients, they share past lives, and they're just pure, pure love. It's beautiful. Like often when they come through, it's so fascinating because they share information. I can actually hear myself say, "Oh my God, I've got to remember this. This is incredible." And then I come back into Michelle, and then I can remember little bits, little bits of information. And when I'm doing channelings for YouTube, and if I rewatch it, it's great. But when clients will come back and say, "Wow, they mentioned this and this and this," or they mentioned a timeline, like in 2 weeks' time, you won't be here. This is what's happening. And remember, there's no time in spirit.
Yeah.
There's no time in the quantum field. So they talk in the now, even though they might give us timelines. And the biggest thing was me learning to trust in the relationship with them, not them learning to trust me. Because they said I was born ready, I was always ready. But it was me learning to trust that there is more, learning to trust in the information that was coming through. And a lot of it had to do with my self-doubt. And slowly but surely there's been like sort of moments with sessions where the information just comes through me. A client would be on my table, and I would just get this, it's almost like I would go into a different space. And then when I started doing my videos, I would close my eyes because again I wasn't trusting the information. So I didn't want to look at myself when I was doing YouTube videos, so I'd rather just close my eyes. And I was going through these massive upgrades where my throat, like I would just crash. I would just crash. My nervous system is like, because obviously they light energy. We're a mass. And I would just hit this massive crash, where I would just be down and out for 2 to 3 days. And it was like my body would just go, and I could feel myself kind of just like almost my going through this massive transformation. But what I came to learn, because I watched a lady called Sheila Gillette, and she channels Theo, and she taught Abraham, Esther and Jerry Hicks. So she's been going for like 40 odd years. And then she helped me realize in watching her in a podcast that, of course, every time we're going through this massive upgrade, our body has got to let go of the old. So she taught me regenerate your nervous system, regenerate your central nervous system. So lots of magnesium, eating differently, eating high vibrational foods, eating quite clean, and I don't do it all the time because for me life is about balance. But I could most certainly feel the upgrades I was going through, and the crashes, and that's what she said is what happens is like, because with the tonings that were coming through me, like it was like they needed to expand my throat chakra. And it was interesting because when Jill and I first met, one of the very first readings Jill had done for me, which I've got on my wall here, which was all about Michelle needed to work with her throat
Yeah.
and speaking up, but not speaking up in the way that I was taught, in the way that I was used to, the aggression, the anger, like la 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 la. That was, I always thought that was speaking up. La la la, but it was being spoken with a harsh vibration, whereas now I'm able to speak up and say, no, thank you. That actually doesn't work for me. And the vibration, the energy still stays quite subtle, because I used to speak up. I still can do, obviously, with my knee-jerk reaction. My knee-jerk is like, oh, and that's when I realize I'm in fight or flight. So I'm still moderating that. And as I said early on, working through my PTSD. But the Council of Eight, their wisdom is just beautiful. And the energy they share with people is so on point that I don't know until a client would say, wow, Michelle, we're processing this for days after. It's like, how did they know this? And that's what I love, is that I don't know. I don't even, even when they share the Akashic records, a lot of times they'll say, you've been this in your records, or you've held this energy, or you've been storing that. And you can see people's fascination, like, oh, like we sort of knew that, but we didn't know that, but it's just confirmation. And that's what I love as well, as they plant seeds. So they're not giving all the information, they're planting seeds because they know that we are completely in our own power, in our own vessels. And they plant seeds for the client to walk away with, to have the aha moments, And a lot of times, from my understanding, it's just confirmation for that person. What they've sort of known is their truth, but they didn't really own it. if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, it does. That's great.
It's a
So,
very special connection. Yeah, and we have our gatherings every Monday morning at 8 a.m., our community gatherings, um, where we start with a heart opening meditation. So that's in the States and Europe. It's
you're doing all on Zoom.
all on Zoom, and they're $16 and we have anything between 10 people up to 18, and it's growing every week. And people can sign in if they've got nothing to do on a Sunday evening or a Sunday afternoon. In the rest of the world, they can sign up like 10 minutes before, because sometimes it's actually happened. And those people that they'll say, we're sitting, and all of a sudden we'll get this message from our guides like, you've got to be there. And it's incredible. I had it last week where a friend of mine in Hawaii, she said, she was just like, la, 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 la. And her guide said, quickly sign up. And then I actually said to her, you're in Hawaii. Don't you please want to start with a heart opening meditation for your land? And so it's not only about me channeling, and people come with questions and they answer the questions. And normally the energies, the questions, the answers is for everybody that's in the collective, in the group. And they're just a delight. They laugh at us a lot. Okay. They often go, oh, my soul, you humans. You humans are so funny. That I do remember because I've said a lot. And they keep it light, which is what and simple, which is what I like. That there's a lot that I am still learning, but I've said to them, please keep it simple, like my language, so that others can interpret how you guys come through. And I really, really enjoy that. Yeah.
And so when you do session now with your clients, do you have more and more the council of eight coming forward, or is it a mix?
It's a mix. I've had sessions where immediately as soon as I connect into the person's body. They may, I've kind of kept it separate on my website. They either book in for a council of eight session or they book in for a mediumship session because they've lost a loved one or they want to work on any of their old, maybe the unconscious or their blockages or some trauma that might come up or grieving. But sometimes we've had the mediumship and then I get this nudging, and 10 minutes before the session's up, I'll say, listen, the council of eight want to come through, and then they come through. So sometimes it can be a real mix match of everything, but if they book in for the council of eight, then that's normally where to be a full hour session with the council of eight, and
Wow.
a full hour, yeah, and it goes a full 1 hour, sorry, a full hour, 1 hour, yeah. Um, but it is incredible how much within an hour can come through and be transformed. And they use my voice box, they do a lot of whistling, a lot of tunings, a lot of tonings into the body. They ask the clients to bring attention if there's a kind of a blockage or a stuckness on the physical or emotional, and they bring the attention to the physical, and then they'll bring through what I didn't know is people have measured these different tonings on different podcasts. Yeah, people have come back and said, like, as comments, like, oh, Michelle, we measured this vibration, and that vibration was to work with trauma, or that vibration was the hurts of love. And I'm like, oh, nice. Like, yeah, I've got tuning forks, and like the one that is turning grief into joy, 396. Like, that's one of the tuning forks that I've got. 963, turning matter into spirit. So there's those different, there's quite a few different tuning forks for the different chakras, but the different vibrations. So that's been quite interesting for me. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I don't know what comes through. It just comes through. And sometimes I'm like, in my head, I can remember going, my soul, I always knew I could do opera. I knew it. I thought I was an opera singer somewhere in a past life. Because it's incredible. It really is
Wow.
incredible.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Wow, cool. And what would you say to someone who knows and feels they have a gift and but they're not sure really how to present it in the world? They have a bit of fear. What would you tell them? You or the council or aid? What would be your saying on that?
Trust yourself and nourish the gift. You know, it's even though they've been with me, spirit's with us from the day we're born. There's no doubt. I mean, think of it like this: when we're growing inside our mother's stomachs, not once did our mothers ever have to say, "Oh, we forgot the fingerprint. Oh my soul, we forgot to give them two ears. Oh wow, wow, we forgot the heart." And that's the beauty of the resonance of our heart always knowing orally. It always knows. It's the first thing we hear as mothers. We hear the heart beat before we even, before the visual scans that we've got nowadays that we're privileged to have. But trust in that, little ding, like, oh, do I? And I'm a Michelle, you're Aurelie, we've all got our own gifts, and it's trusting in that. So if we have that little ding, nourish it. It's practicing it. I had to practice my connection with them. I had to practice just going, oh, okay, here I am. But yes, my mind can be incredibly busy. And my default is, like I said earlier on, my husband will often say to me, do you realize that you're not the easiest to live with? Because I live in a la la land. So my thing is to ground. Because I just feel, I can come out of a session and literally walk into the kitchen and I can feel their vibration straight away. I can feel the vibration with somebody instantaneously because there is no separation in vibration, in connection. So, he might be like in full work mode and I'm like, by the way, have you thought about this and this and this? And I can feel this in your body, and I have to stop that because I just get in. And he's like, just stop it, you know? And I'm like, okay, la 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 la. I kind of, I skip off. Alrighty, I'll just park that there. But we all are gifted.
Yeah.
I am not gifted in maths. I still count on my fingers and I'm terrible at it. But some people are incredibly gifted at maths where they can just boom, 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 work it out, you know? We all have our own gift. We all can channel in our own way. Some people are through their hands. Some people are through their hands with colors. Some people are artists. Some people are gifted with math. Some people may see certain things. Some people may hear certain things. Some people, everybody feels different. But trust that gift, and if you resonate with a therapist, if you resonate with somebody that's come into your space who can help you on your journey in some way, whether it be for one session or whether it be for 15 sessions or whether it be for a full entire year or 2 years or a mentoring course, do it. Jump in and do it. Because nothing is ever for nothing. Ever, 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 ever. I went on a what's it called? Non-violent communication course when I still lived in Queenstown and we came here to Golden Bay. And a lot of it pushed my buttons because I realized that I was unfolding in my own self. I had to learn to trust my own knowing and stop the courses because I was another course, another course, another course, another course, and they're all going to help me. They're all going to fix me. And it was a beautiful course. There was a lot that I resonated with. There was a lot that I didn't resonate with, but it gave me my knowing. But I always believe, no matter if people come back to me or don't, I always say, look for one gift in the session. One gift. One gift in the retreat. One gift in the course. Just look for the one gift. Because it's very easy to go into our egoic mind and say, oh, that wasn't for me. What a waste of money. Blah, 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 blah. Those people weren't my people. But I had to look for the one gift. And there were many gifts when I really stood back and looked at it. But it interesting enough, it was where I was in a space of lack, and money wise, financial wise, so I blamed the course for not giving me enough. It was never about the course, it was where I was at, because the course gave me a lot. When we stand back and we look at where we're at and go, oh, actually, beautiful, beautiful people, beautiful food. But it's always easy to blame and be in the victim space. So that was my learning a few years ago. Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, that was beautiful. And I don't know, it's the journey that you are about to do in October, is it more something like, a small group and it's going to share later on, or is it?
This journey, we are not too sure. We have been guided to go on a spiritual quest, and I'd love to come back and share with you what comes up because every now and again, Jill and I have gone, like, what happens if we go? We just do nothing. And I'm like, well, then we have fun, man. We have fun. Like, that's what we've been shown a lot of is this group collectively have been guided to come together. People have felt the calling, and I can actually even feel it now in my heart. Um, we have no idea what's going to show up. We've just been asked on the 26th of October, no matter where you are in the world, no matter what time it is, on the 26th of October, just send love, send light, send peace, send joy, send whatever you're feeling. We've been guided to ask everybody to meditate for 60 minutes on the 26th of October, again, no matter what the time is, and just send that energy to Egypt because there's going to be beautiful source energy around the world that's going to unfold. How that looks, how that feels, I have no idea. I just know I'm super excited, and we've just got some amazing people that I've met on Zoom that I'm now going to touch. Like, I'm like, just prepare your bodies, girls, prepare your bodies, guys, and we're going to just meet up in the real human time.
Excellent. So
Love to
anyway, I guess they just need to go on your website and they will see all the details.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
And they can
So,
follow you
thank
on your
you
YouTube
so much.
channel. I will put all the links.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for all the work you do. Thank you for all the light and love you bring to this world. It's beautiful. You are beautiful inside and out. So I'm very grateful and honored. Thank
Thank
you.
you. That was amazing. And thank you for your time. Goodness, it flew away.
Goes, eh? My pleasure. Have a beautiful day, and
You
we'll
too.
see you soon. Okay. Lots
Yeah.
of love. Okay. Bye.